We're going to hear Max from Pusher then. But first, David from Storyful is going to pitch for you. David.
Hello, it's actually Mark, last time I checked. My name is Mark Little. I am the founder of Storyful. And Storyful is a company which separates the news from the noise of the real-time web. And before perhaps I tell you how we do that, I'll just tell you a little bit about the vision behind the company. It's based on my own personal experience. I was lucky enough for 20 years to live my childhood dream of being a foreign correspondent. So whenever there was a war, a natural disaster, I was sent. I was also sent to very beautiful places like Iran, and I developed a really deep, passionate professional love affair with Iran. And I suppose that was also the scene of the epiphany, of the light bulb moment that created Storyful. Because if you remember back in June 2009, the protests that broke out after a disputed election in the streets of Tehran and other Iranian cities were covered not by foreign correspondents like me. They were covered by young men, young women with smartphones connected to social networks telling the world about what was happening. And for me, that was an incredibly inspiring sight. But it was also frightening, the notion that if everybody could speak at the same time on a social network, 72 hours of YouTube video uploaded every single minute of every day, 340 million tweets every single day, who do you listen to as a journalist? And just the discussion we've just had about ethics, how do you know when the truth and the lie move with equal speed through social networks? And that was the problem that I attempted to solve with Storyful. So over the past 18 months, what we've done is built a product which is arranged around a web browser dashboard, which this is it, which is customized to each individual client. And essentially what we think we've created is the first newswire purpose-built for the social media age. As I say, it operates on some very simple principles. What we do for each client in this customized dashboard is discover, validate, and deliver the most compelling, authentic, and valuable content on real-time web to our clients. And we use principles, and the first one is every news event creates a community on the social web. And if you want to know the difference between fact and fiction and get the authenticity we all require, listen to that community. And to do that, we use a combination of technology, clearly, but also human intelligence. The technology at the beginning, on the left-hand side here, we will build Twitter lists, which we think are the best way of listening to a conversation. Our algorithm will extract from those lists of authentic sources the things they're talking about in real time right now. And most often we are way ahead of news agencies and most news organizations. But before we deliver that kind of content to the customer, that key word, validate, comes into play. And we have 20 journalists based in both coasts of the United States, in Ireland, where Storyful is based, and also in Asia. And we use another principle we like to call the human algorithm. So technology is vital. Every news organization has to be a tech startup, but it's not sufficient because somebody's got to make those judgments that around context and ethics and corroboration and permissions and rights that the algorithm can't make. And when we talk about the human algorithm, we mean those journalists joining in that conversation, communicating, fact-checking with the help of the crowd to help us validate information. Here's an example of how we do it. So we, for example, got a video last year from Syria. This is allegedly, according to the creator, Islamist militants throwing bodies of Syrian soldiers into a river outside of Hama. Now, how in God's name do you start to verify or validate that video? Well, thankfully, taking old investigative methods, combining them with the very latest tools provided to us by open source technology, we can go in and start verifying details. We can look at the shadows and we can see the direction of the river flow and say, yeah, that corresponds to what we see in that video. We can use tools like Panoramio to notice the detail on the side of the road corresponds to the detail in the video. Lots more to do on that video, but that's just an example of the kind of thing we're doing. And in all of this, Storyful is pioneering new methods. We're not trying to replace journalism. We're not trying to replace the foreign correspondent. I was one. I'm proud of that. But I remember being a foreign correspondent, going to do my live shotting, getting a crackly line giving me AFP copy down the line before my live shot. I would have killed for a platform like this to tell me what actually was going on around me. We're not taking the decisions you make and outsourcing them, not at all. We're helping you, providing you with the metadata that as editors you need to make decisions about ethics, veracity, authenticity. And finally, I think with Storyful, what really excites me is that we are, I think, laying building blocks for a commercial future for what we can now talk about as social journalism. We've been hearing for the last 3 days about live, real-time, on every platform, tablet, IPTV, browser. We need to be there with live stories. The old article's gone. What Storyful does is give you the raw material to build those most valuable forms of narrative. Example, Damascus 2 weeks ago, explosion. We capture the video, but we also give the context that allows Al Jazeera, word for word, to use our content on their live blog. We're very proud to be part of an ecosystem that involves a lot of collaboration. We're not the only ones doing what we call curation. I think we'll soon abandon that phrase. But I see other companies doing something similar, very valuable. They're here today, NewsGrid and Scribble Live, and I think Citizen Sites in the hall tonight. We're very proud to be part of an ecosystem that I believe will help you shape a revolution, not become victim to it. We work with some very pioneering newsrooms. We've worked with YouTube since the beginning of the Arab Spring. We work with ABC News in America, in Australia. Very proud to work with the New York Times, France 24, but also with Channel 4, and a whole host of clients. And we're beginning a very exciting period of our company's history where we're starting to scale our insights and hopefully provide that operating system, that toolkit that will allow every newsroom to join in this revolution, because that's what it is. And I'm very proud to be part of this organization. Come and talk to us. We'd love to work with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. And now I'm calling Max from Pusher for the last Startup for News pitch. Again, don't forget to vote for your favorite startups. And Mark.
Hello everyone, my name's Max Williams, I'm from Pusher. Probably a little bit different from some of the other startups that you've seen, as our product's not designed specifically for editorial newsrooms, but it does make things a lot easier for you. One of the things that seems to be a recurring theme from this conference, as a kind of outsider watching, is that the future of news is real-time. Whether all of news is going to be real-time or not is a kind of different question, but certainly a massive part of it is going to be. People are seeking news throughout the day, on their mobiles, wherever they are, and that doesn't seem to be something that's going to change, and something that's going to increase as we go forward. Things like Twitter are, obviously something that has been discussed very regularly here, and is a big source of social news. So how do you compete for that attention when people are looking for their news sources elsewhere and looking to each other? And we believe that you can give users real-time updates from your trusted sources, and that is the way that you can kind of retain their engagement. And that means replacing static content in your applications, in your websites, with real-time content. But what does real-time really mean is a question that seems to be bandied around. In some sense, it is a buzzword. It's a kind of way of marketing products, and a lot of them that we've seen this last few days have had real-time in the names. Basically things like no refresh button. People just want a constant flow of information. But more key to that, it's about retention and engagement of your users. You want to create destinations where people stay, and you don't want to give them a reason to browse elsewhere. You want them to kind of stay with your application and see the new content as it comes in. And so obviously becoming real-time is where our product comes into it. We're basically a delivery mechanism. We're a piece of infrastructure. We can work with all sorts of different applications, but news just happens to be something that's well suited. It's something that you can add to your existing applications and websites, so you don't have to adopt a whole new kind of process or do anything like that. Fundamentally, as I said earlier on, it's a tool for developers. It's an API. And what we allow you to do is to maintain persistent connections with people's devices, whether those are web browsers or mobile, and push new data as it comes in, as you create it. In terms of the data that can be pushed, it can be anything. It can be news stories, it can be pictures, it can be updates to news stories, it can be corrections if you felt like it, it can be graphs, interactivity, anything you want. And it's on web, mobile, and tablet. And just as an example, I wanted to show you one of our customers, which is ITVNews.com. They recently had a bit of a revamp of their website. They're a broadcaster primarily, but they've also got a web offering. And they switched their website to this live news stream format. And since doing that, they've told us that their visitor numbers have tripled since switching to this new format, and it seems to be working as a way of kind of engaging those users. So, as I said earlier, things like notification of breaking stories, live blogging, interactivity, second screen as well, where you have that interactivity. These are all great use cases for what we provide. Pusher makes it really easy. You probably don't want to talk to me, but you should probably send your developers to talk to us. We'd be very happy to kind of talk about what you're doing and how you're embracing this kind of trend and how you're kind of taking advantage of it. That's it. Thank you.